you to everybody for coming. Lucy from Hazelwoods is now going to give you some of the facts on the inheritance tax. So I will pass you over to Lucy. Lucy, thank you for speaking today.
Thank you very much, Emma. It's a pleasure to speak here this morning, and as you're all here, you're all passionate about the farming community and to make sure that one way or another we can keep farming across the UK. My job this morning is to just give you some insights into what's been said in the budget and the likely impact that will have on you. So I'm one of the partners in Hazelwood's Accountants. We deal with lots of farmers across the UK, especially Gloucestershire, Herefordshire, Worcestershire, and we've already been having a large number of conversations about what the impact is, and it's very worrying for all of you. So hopefully I can explain what's been said, what's happening, and then you'll be a little bit more, hopefully, better informed. So from the starting point, nothing changes between now and the 6th of April 2026. So if you're unfortunate to die now, the inheritance tax position would be exactly the same as it was before the budget, i.e. any assets that qualify for agricultural property relief or business quality property relief will get 100% relief. So that leads me on to my, don't do anything rash. Take time, speak to your advisors and plan. There is still time to plan. There is also, as you're aware, we're all here today, there's substantial lobbying going on from the NFU, the CLA, the Thames Farmers Association, and there's a lot of support for British farmers. And the other thing to think about is actually the changes they've announced don't affect just farmers, it's every business. So the commercial businesses as well are going to be hit in a similar way. So, what have they said? They've now said that 100% agricultural property relief and business property relief will relate to the first £1 million, which in farming terms is not a very big figure. You probably cover 50 acres and a modest house to get to that figure. And not many farms with that size are actually able to continue because they're not making any money anyway. So, if you looked at an average farm, if they say that's 200 acres, then you're looking at 2 million plus as a minimum, and probably 3 to 4, depending on your area and how productive you are. So if you're a single farmer, you're not married, you've got a £4 million farm, your inheritance tax liability has gone from 0 to somewhere in the region of 500,000, which is a massive impact. The other thing to note with the farming and families is that people want to pass it on into different generations. There is still the opportunity to do that, and looking and planning ahead is easy to say, not so easy to do. Previously, your accountants always said, we'll pass everything across on death and you'll get a tax-free uplift for capital gains tax at the same time, and that works. That does still work at the moment, but if they do bring in the legislation as they've suggested, then the relief isn't going to be there in full. So you're only going to get 50% relief on anything above £1 million. Where you can look at is where you have farming families, husbands and wives. You can still transfer between husband and wife. That doesn't stop. There's no tax on doing that. There's also a consideration of when things are passed down a generation. So on death, it's making sure that all those, so husband and wife are both using their £1 million allowance on death, because that can't be passed across. So that there is an opportunity there. Anything above £1 million is going to get a 50% relief, so that the effective rate of tax with inheritance tax being at 40% is 20%. So it's a big hit, and we all know within farming that the asset values are high. Certainly if you've got arable farming and you've got kits and harvesters and tractors, you easily add up to £1 million. So that's where we are at the moment. There is planning opportunities. As I say, the older you are, the more difficult it becomes. If you give everything away and you live 7 years, there is no inheritance tax. And you are still able to give away assets, trading assets, so the farm, without paying any capital gains tax at that point. So there is opportunities there, but it's a case of the succession conversations that we all put off will probably need to come forwards and be done earlier. But in the meantime, we've got to go with what we've got. So if they do make the changes and you're an elderly person, then potentially there could be some inheritance tax there to pay. And appreciate that farming as it is at the moment, profits are always fluctuating, and with a lot of family farms there isn't sufficient cash flow in there to pay anything any extra. So there will be an impact. Just reading my notes to make sure I haven't covered anything. The allowances will also cover off trusts. You know, accountants talk trusts and tax advisors talk trusts, and a lot of people think, oh, I don't want to do that. But it is something that is a consideration. So if you've got £1 million worth of farmland and it's put into trust now, for instance, then that trust should receive £1 million worth of agricultural property relief. If you live for 7 years, you've then got another £1 million you can use. So that there are options there, but it's not what any of us want, and we do hope that they will backtrack on some of it. I shall be around this morning, so if anybody's got any questions or anything they specifically want to ask, then please do come and say hello. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy, for speaking. Right, thank you, Lucy. Really informative. Dave Edwards is going to speak now, and I will pass you over to Dave.
I'll sound a bit more like Jim Davis than something, isn't it, the way this thing is bleeping away. But anyway, thank you all very much for coming here today to put this support in. And thank you to Lucy there. She's given us a very good enlightenment of what's going on. Now we are all looking and wondering where things are going. Basically, from what I see it, things don't change with these Labour governments. I went to a meeting, I don't know what it was, 20-25 years ago, when Nick Brown, our agricultural minister then, was there, and his advice to all farmers was, if you're farming up to 500 acres, that you should take another job or diversify and do your farming at nights and weekends. Well, I mean, that's a joke for a start. My big concern is, I did take his advice in a way. I diversified into another business, but we still farm as well, and which has worked out very well for us. But this situation we get at this present time is a knock-on effect, and that's one of the things I want to come across with, is a knock-on effect to every other business connected to agriculture. And you know, it doesn't matter whether you're an agronomist, a feed firm, a haulage company, whatever it is, everything is linked to farming. And even if somebody says, well, we don't need the farmers, we only got an IT business, you know, we work with computers. Well, they've probably been out for a drink last night, or they probably had some breakfast or some dinner today, and they can't have that without a farmer. So everything depends on a farmer, right the way through the whole population. Now, we are looking at food security and the situation with a lot of that, which is very, very, or could be very difficult. We don't want to see our population, we don't want to be behind them, we don't want them starving themselves because we're not supplying them with enough food. But we bring in, or we supply around just over 60% of the food in this country. We get another 30-odd% comes in from Spain and Europe, and the rest of it's made up from around the rest of the world. Well, at the moment we've had a disaster in Spain, whereby if it hasn't already stopped, it soon will be stopped, the food coming in from there, due to all the flooding and situations there. So we only need a very small world disaster to affect from what we are doing. We all saw it 3 or 4 years ago with the fertilizer prices and where they went to, which affected us and the food. But we as farmers are asked to stand on this, and it makes it very, very, very difficult to go on. We'll always look, next year's going to be a little bit better, but you can't always guarantee on that. And so that's where we're going to with that. We have to stand all of these things, and farming's been asked to sort of, carry the can all the while. We've had a lot of issues over the last 20 odd years. This isn't just what's happening today. We've had things like foot and mouth, we've had BSE, we've had TB, and all of these things are harming farming. We've just had one of the worst, or 2 of the worst years basically, due to the weather and how that's affected the crops and everything that we've done. And then we've also, with all the cereals and everything, lower yields due to weather, and then we've got the Russians sending us in cheap cereals and stuff into this country at the moment, which is again affecting all our bottom line all the time. So basically what we've got to do, or what I think we've got to do, is stand out there. We've got the boys all down in London today, both with the NFU at their meetings and putting forward what they can do, and obviously a very big rally of which we will hear about probably later today on how many were there and what has happened. And the way I look at it is we've got to keep pushing forward, we've got to stand together and back one another all the way. I think we've got to fight against Westminster, we've got to fight against the supermarkets, and we've got to try and supply food to all of the people. If we can supply it through farm shops and other small businesses, that will be good, but we do need to make the supermarkets take note of what is happening. And the other thing is, we are the biggest sort of people that can actually make a big difference in this country into holding, if we had to, the country to ransom by running tractors and stuff around the roads or creating that. Now, that's not something that I want to promote you to do, but at this stage and where we are at this time of year, I think I would like to see the farmers that are going out and doing all these rallies at a night with all the Christmas lights and everything on their tractors. Let's back behind those boys, get a lot more out there, make it a lot bigger, and put all our signs for keep farmers in the UK supplying food to our nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. That was very informative. Ellie's going to speak now, and I'll pass you over to Ellie.
Hi there. So I think what Emma was trying to say when she spoke to me earlier on this week was that she wanted a perspective from the younger generation. So when I was asked to speak today, I thought it was really important to stress the impact that will be having. I can't talk for others, but for myself and my family, the budget has the potential to hold a detrimental impact to our farming business. I farm with both my brother and my father and grandfather, my brother of which is in London today. My brother and I are third generation farmers on our family dairy farm. We farm with my father, who's worked at the farm all his life, and my grandfather, who is 90 next year. He still owns the farm, unfortunately, and he's a director in our family farming business. Since the 80s, the farm has gone from 20 cows to over 900. This is a project of sacrifice, hard work and determination that my dad and my family have put in, previously in the knowledge that the hours and time would pay off and as the farm would pass down to himself and eventually to his children. excuse me. I came into the farming business nearly 3 years ago from a corporate background to work on the farm full time. I therefore have the potential now to be hit by 2 lots of inheritance tax. And so on the death of my father and my grandfather, and on my father as well, before he can even farm the farm of his own, he is facing the probability that to avoid this inheritance tax, that he will have to pass the farm on to his children before it can even pass to him, after working there all his life. On the 13th of October, I could not be more disheartened. If we are to tax land and businesses upon the death of the farmer, it sadly shows that Starmer, our government and the country, has become so disconnected from core farming values. They cannot see that we as farmers do not farm for profit or ourselves. We farm out of passion and the knowledge that we are passing down our skill sets and land to the next generation. The land is not ours. It does not belong to one person. It's there to be farmed, looked after and then passed down. Upon the government's new budget, as things stand at the moment, we as a family went from facing an inheritance tax bill upon the death of my grandfather, that something can be potentially 90 times more than it was before. How we're to deal with this, I'm not sure, but the knowledge that we have to sell either our land or assets taken from our working capitals is unthinkable. If I was to put a positive spin on this, as a younger generation, young farmer, for the younger generation, I think that it has the potential to create a more dynamic industry. It presents the opportunity for a clear U-turn for the tradition of family farms being held by the older generation until death. With the changing environments that farmers are facing, greater legislation and volatile markets, it presents the opportunity for young farmers and new entrants to take the lead and play an active role in allowing their family businesses to be at the forefront of modern farming practices. Instead of this being the end of the family farm, let this be the opportunity to create advancement. I would also, seeing how many people are here, that the upsurge and rallying of the farming community is always a good thing, regardless of the catalyst. It is well known that farming is often a lonely and isolating place. If anything, the government's actions have presented the opportunity for farmers to speak to each other and reach out. If I was to offer any advice to the younger generation, therefore, it would be to be proactive. Speak to your farming advisors, accountants and consultants. Regardless of how the present might now seem, we can always find a way to mitigate things. I would also mention there are some great farming charities out there who offer help. I think Farming Minds are here today, so I'd really suggest if anyone had any issues would be to reach out to them, and they have some great helplines to ask for help. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. I think that was put so well, and to hear it from a younger person's perspective, because so many of us now in the farming industry, it's an older generation, so it was wonderful to hear it from the younger person's perspective. I'm going to pass over to Mr. Lowe, who's approached us earlier and asked to speak. For anybody who's got a burning desire to speak, you're very welcome, but I will pass the mic.
Good morning. Good morning. My message would be to the NFU. The gloves have got to come off. I've watched them this morning saying this will be peaceful. No. Why should it be peaceful? You need to take this to the front line. And the NFU must show some leadership. This isn't working very well. I've made my major point. And I'll make the second point, which is that there is a great deal more in that budget against farmers than would be an inheritance tax. There is the tax to come on pickups. They do not like the countryside, and they think the countryside is going to pay for the NHS. That's what they said on the television this morning. And we need to understand how deathly serious this government is to destroy the countryside. That's where they're aiming. And we could... They have got 4 years to turn this country at least halfway to Romania. They will nationalise the land they can get hold of, put solar panels on it, and turn them collective. It could happen. You need to think the unthinkable. Good luck to everybody in the countryside. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to try to stand still and not make a noise with the mic. Thank you all for coming. We didn't know what to do. Emma came to me and said, can you help me organise an event that's outside London for those that can't get there? That's what we've done. I don't know what you were expecting. We didn't know how many people would turn up. To us, it was just a show of support for all our friends and everybody out there who have made the effort to go to London, and by gathering here, we've shown our support to them when we couldn't actually get there. So thank you for coming. Thank you for organising this. Thank you to Ross Market, and thank you everybody, and like the gentleman said, good luck and thank you.
I'm Ellie Lovell. I'm a dairy farmer in North Herefordshire, just outside Bromyard. I'm the current Farmers Weekly Young Farmer of the Year. In terms of how the new budget is affecting us as dairy farmers, it has a potential to hold a detrimental impact. I'm a third generation farmer, farming on our land in North Hereford. As at the moment, my grandfather, who's 90 next year, still owns the farm and is still director in our farming business. My father also is working full-time at the farm. He's 61 and he's worked on the farm all his life. I farm with my brother as well, and I'm turning 30 next year. My brother is 25. So the problem for us is that the only option for us at the moment, things stand to avoid an inheritance tax bill, is for my grandfather to pass on to the farm, either to myself, my brother or my father, and him to survive 7 years. Realistically, that's not going to happen. I would like to think it would do. So we're facing an inheritance tax bill of, the 20% value on the value of the business, with the 1 million exception. On top of that, on the death of my father, we have the potential for another inheritance tax bill. So in the span of potentially 30 years, we're going to be hit with 2 lots of inheritance tax. What I would like to get out of today is for them to realise how unrealistic the budget is to the people who are caught in this crossfire of being in the 75 plus age mark, who realistically are controlling, still owning a business or a farm, but the likelihood is that they might not survive 7 years. Let's let the government give us the opportunity to make the change, to be able to put things in place in action to mitigate inheritance tax for the younger generation. There's some really great people in the farming, in agriculture. Yeah. I've met some really great young generation farmers, who are really forward-thinking, realistic to developing modern practices. But I'm not going to lie, it gets harder and harder each year. We face volatile markets, environmental threats, changing weather patterns. and on top of increased legislation from the government. We, as farmers, all want to do the right thing, but we have to be supported to do that. The idea of increased ideas around sustainability is a buzzword that keeps on being put around. We as farmers cannot be sustainable if there's not profit. We need to be able to be profitable, to be able to invest in our businesses, to be able to be sustainable going forwards. We need to be paid fairly for the food we produce. And likewise, I think that needs to be conveyed down the line towards the consumer to realise the cost of our food and how much effort is going into producing our food. To be honest, the impact of Brexit, as a dairy farmer, I can only comment on.
Yeah.
Our milk is sold to Arla, which is based in Europe. So we are paid in euros as a currency. So the fluctuation in exchange rates has a detrimental impact, or great volatility to how much we are paid as farmers. Yes. So upon Brexit and upon change in government, when the exchange rate crashed, we were paid a lot less for our milk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.